What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, March 27th, 2020. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. And we have got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. And Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. And, of course, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 2 of our show today, starting at 4 o'clock Central Time. And, well, let's just get right on into it. Despite a delaying tactic by Representative Massey, the House of Representatives has passed the Coronavirus Relief Act, and as a matter of fact, apparently the president is getting ready to sign it even as we speak. And so that will move forward, and the money is going to start flowing out to businesses and corporations primarily, and checks to Americans who are earning under a certain amount of money. I think it's $99,000 and above do not get a check. So it's $1,200 for a single American, $2,400 per couple. And again, to me, it's not going to be enough. They're going to have to pass another bill down the road, and already Nancy Pelosi is out there dropping hints about, well, next time we'll get what we want. Okay, so the U.S. coronavirus death toll is reported as having increased to 1,300, and experts are saying there are now 12 American hotspots that could spread the epidemic across the entire nation. Well, I don't know. It's already in all 50 states in the District of Columbia, so I would say it's already spread across the entire nation here. And the United States is now on a worse trajectory than Italy, with more than 86,000 confirmed coronavirus cases, and of course, as I mentioned just now, a death toll of 1,300. Now, we seem to be getting into a little bit of a war over treatments here, and Michigan's Democratic governor is sort of hopping on board, threatening doctors and pharmacists who prescribe or dispense hydroxychloroquine for coronavirus patients. And it was kind of interesting. I heard this story on Fox News earlier where they were talking about, we need to find a uniquely American solution to this problem, which validates what I said, I think was just yesterday, that the United States is not interested in cures or treatments or vaccines from other countries. They want to basically have an American company come up with something so that American company gets your money when you go scrambling off to the doctor to say, save me from this horrible, horrible galloping crud disease that's affecting everybody. And so it's another case of profits over people. And it's a bad set of priorities, in my opinion. I'm sorry, just call me silly. I think it's a bad set of priorities. Anyway, the telehealth company is already prescribing the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin drug combination, which is the one that seems to be working best, and they're prescribing it for patients nationwide. So the doctors in Michigan are being cut out, and it's not stopping the use of this medication. Okay, another tragic story. A teenage boy died after being turned away from urgent care for not having insurance. I remember a time when if people were sick or injured, the hospitals and doctors had to treat them. And yes, they'd try and get paid for it, but if they couldn't get paid for it, they didn't turn people away. Today, it's different. If you've got money, if you don't have money, you don't get the help. An aspect of the supply chain, everybody's worried about the supply chain. Everybody's out of toilet paper and hand sanitizers and face masks and rubber gloves. And by the way, we're seeing more and more of that around here, people wearing the masks and wearing the gloves. But there's an issue with food supply, because the workers who are producing that food supply, they're susceptible to infection as well. Poultry giant Sanderson Farms, Monday of this week, reported the first case of a worker at a major U.S. meat producer testing positive for coronavirus. The employee and 6 more from this Mississippi plant were sent home to self-quarantine with pay, but operations continued as normal. A few days later, Smithfield Foods Incorporated, who's the world's largest pork producer, confirmed a positive case at its Sioux Falls, South Dakota facility. In all likelihood, the numbers are going to keep going up. Well, that's a little bit of a scary situation where the food that you're getting at your supermarket is coming from a producer where the workers have tested positive. It's another vector that we have to be aware of. And all I can say is, cook it well. Forget about rare or medium rare. It's well done from here on out. Okay. I'm looking at the headlines here right now. Apparently, the CEO of United Airlines is saying the stimulus package isn't enough to prevent job cuts. Okay. This is a good one. Again, at Fox News, one of their hosts, Ainsley Earhart, came on the air complaining that women can't get their hair and nails done during the coronavirus lockdown. And of course, this sparked a lot of outrage, as well as it should. Where are your priorities here? I mean, my goodness. Anyway, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. I mean, come on, Ainsley. As I mentioned before, Representative Thomas Massey, who's Republican, he was against the stimulus bill, and he tried to force a roll call vote on the package in the House, whereas everybody else said, we're just going to do an aye and an nay and get in and out as quickly as we can so we can maintain our social separation here. But it was at best a delaying tactic. And again, the House did pass the bill, and Trump is going to be signing it imminently. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is unhappy with the coronavirus stimulus bill because it does not include cash payments to illegal aliens. And she went on this tirade on Twitter, basically saying this had to be an oversight. And she's upset that the cash payments written into the bill, $1,200 to most individuals depending upon income and $2,400 to couples, will only apply to taxpayers who have a Social Security number. Alexandria, those illegals aren't supposed to be here in the first place. Okay? And they chose of their own free will to walk across that border and come to the United States of America. And just dumb luck, they happened to be here when this coronavirus pandemic struck. And it would be striking them wherever they were because it's a global pandemic. But we, the people, we, the taxpayers, don't really owe them anything because they broke the law. And I'm not being racist because illegal is not a race. Getting into our regular politics here, because I'm sick and tired of coronavirus here, Joe Biden is all of a sudden having to deal with all of these allegations of sexual impropriety and groping and one case of sexual assault. They're calling it rape here. And now there's another story that has come on out from the Gateway Pundit talking about a former Biden Secret Service agent on his protective detail, basically saying they had to protect women from him and describing it as Weinstein-level stuff. And this agent, who was choosing to remain anonymous, said, we had to cancel the VP Christmas get-together at the vice president's house because Biden would grope all of our wives' and girlfriends' rear ends. And he would mess with every single woman or teen. It was horrible. And there are videos of Biden being, shall we say, excessively physical with females of all ages. I'm putting it as gently as I can. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Michael. I have a couple questions. Can you explain why Trump has not nationalized some of these medical and supply companies that could help people and also the workers?
Well, I don't know why he hasn't, but I think it's probably a good thing that he hasn't, because nationalizing the companies would put them under government control, and government control would just slow everything down. And if you remember the history of World War II, there was a phrase, the captains of industry, and these were owners of factories who basically were recruited to join the war effort. And they kept their companies, they kept them under their control because they knew how to make it all work. Where if you send in a bunch of government bureaucrats, there's a learning curve involved. And so I think it's a good thing he didn't nationalize these, these companies.
Right now it seems like the states are fighting not only the government but also each other to get certain supplies and material.
Yes.
Now, so how do you put a stop? How do you put a stop to that?
Well, you don't have to necessarily nationalize the companies. I mean, they could set up a rationing system where everybody pools what they're making, whether it's masks or gloves, and then somebody arbitrarily says this state gets so many and this state gets so many. But there are shortages. They didn't rebuild the stockpiles after the 2009 when pigs fly flu, and now they got caught short. They spent all of our money on war, and they did not spend money on taking care of this nation, which includes preparation for potential pandemics, because it's not like this is the first time this has happened. Pandemics happen on a regular basis. The Spanish flu of 1918 being a good example.
Right, but that was like 102 years ago.
Well, we were overdue for another big one then, and that's why the stockpiles have been maintained.
Right, and the final point, even though they did pass this bill, if you looked at the stock market, it was close to like 1,000 points down.
Yes. So
that means this is only a spit in the ocean. You're going to need more money than $3 trillion, maybe 15 or 20, and where the hell is that money going to come from?
Oh, they're just going to create it out of thin air, and they're going to debase the dollar in the process and send inflation through the roof. And actually, under the current bill, the current plan, it's $6 trillion, because it's $2 trillion for ordinary Americans and another $4 trillion directly from the Federal Reserve to prop up the bond and stock market. And the Dow closed 915 down. It was up there for a while. It was down only 300, 500. But apparently, despite the fact that the House did pass the stimulus bill, it took a major drop just before the closing bell.
And, even though people are not working, that means no money is going into the state or the government where they can take care of certain needs that the people have. So if you're not collecting taxes, then where are you going to get the money from?
You basically you're borrowing it from the Federal Reserve. This is going to send the deficit right through the ceiling, and it's already up there. I mean, this is going to plunge the nation as a whole more deeply into debt. Something like, for a family of four, it's going to be an additional $68,000 in taxes and accruing interest.
Now, can the state borrow money from the Federal Reserve?
Yes, that's where the government gets all of its money. It borrows it at interest from the Federal Reserve. The government prints up a treasury bond, and the Federal Reserve buys the treasury bond, and in exchange it prints up the money or types it into a computer.
Wow. Well, inflation, it's on the way. That's all I can say. Michael, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Steve in West Virginia. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yesterday you have a caller by the name of Paul from New Jersey, I believe, that always rants about Trump.
Yes.
And yesterday he put out the challenge of about putting your money where your mouth is and buying the stock market. I got to tell you, Paul, I bought 300 shares of Boeing about 10 days ago when it was down low. It got down to $85. Got it when it was $94.50. And Rick Ackerman from the Kerr Report, I don't know if any of your listeners listen to that program. They just have like 10-minute clips on the stock market. Rick Ackerman, great stock picker, is on there every day, or probably 3 days a week. And he told everybody, buy Boeing. They're going to take it down to below 100. And sure enough, they did. And he said it'll be back up to 300 before the election comes in. Look what's happened. It already got up to 188. And the other thing I want to tell you is, as far as the stocks, if everybody's going to get sick, all these people working in the gold mines are going to get sick too, right? And so that's going to stop the supply of gold, and that'll drive the price way up. So I just bought 5,088 shares of Yamana Gold today at $291. So there you go, Paul, if you're listening. Now, a couple things I want to talk about. I talked to you the other day, Mike. I unfortunately, because of work, I cannot listen to your programs live a lot of times, but today I can. But I wanted to ask you, have you ever looked at Jason Goodman's programs where he's walking around New York and going to those hospitals?
Well, we had a caller who called in and talked about that the other day, saying that there aren't any patients in the hospitals, and that claims of the number of people with coronavirus and the number of deaths in the United States is being greatly exaggerated. And let's, for a moment, indulge in some speculation. Let's say for a minute that, in point of fact, this was a biological warfare attack by U.S. interests against the two nations that are considered threats to the United States, China and Iran. Well, the best way to cover that up is to claim that, oh my goodness, we here in the United States, we're getting hit by it as well. So that would be a motive to inflate the figures here.
Right. Now, I also mentioned Amazing Polly, where she puts together all the drills, the Event 201. I haven't really heard. I haven't listened to every hour of your program, so you may have talked about this, but have you talked about Event 201 where they've done all these drills of a pandemic right before this happened?
Yeah, last October.
One thing I want to... Yeah, and it went into December, apparently. But one thing I want to talk about is when 9/11 happened, some of the greatest people that have written books, like Webster Tarpley's Synthetic 9/11, and David Ray Griffin, who wrote, they were believers of that it was really a terrorist attack in the beginning. In fact, Webster Tarpley, when he used to go on with Jeff Rintz, has said, he goes, I was a believer at one time, and then after they did investigation, it was a hoax, it was a fake, it was a fraud. So I don't know. I just with all the money being put into the repo markets and stuff, and the banks failing and stuff like that, and then they keep having to pump this phony money in, and then this happens. The timing just doesn't make sense. I just don't believe it's a natural thing. I mean,
well,
I just wanted to put that out there, but mainly.
I think the timing makes perfect sense in the context that they couldn't prop up the economy any longer. Too many people were aware that something was wrong, and they needed to let it correct. And now they've got the coronavirus to blame it all on. The Democrats were actually hoping the economy would crash.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And you can tell. I mean, Bill Gates is a eugenicist. They caught him flying on the plane with Epstein, and he's telling people he wants them to stay indoors. Now, in reality, if there was a real virus, Bill Gates probably wants everybody to go outdoors to get the virus. But Bill Gates is telling, and some of these other leaders are telling people to stay inside and not go back to work, so the economy fully crashes. And then they can say, like you're saying, that the virus caused it all, when that's not what caused it all. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah. They needed a scapegoat. Trump needed a scapegoat. If the economy had done what it's doing now without the coronavirus, he would be looking at a single-term presidency.
Right, exactly. I think he still may be looking at a single-term presidency. You don't know what the Democrats are going to, do. I don't think Biden's the real candidate. I think somebody else is going to come out of the woodwork, and I don't think it's going to be Cuomo or whatever his name is. Like one other thing, I got to tell you, there are going to be some serious opportunities to make some life-changing money in that stock market. They're talking about it over on 321 Gold, and I'm not saying to go buy the gold miners right now because some of them aren't good buys right now. But I'm telling you, if there's going to be they're talking about life-changing money, and I believe it.
All right, well, Steve, we got to let you go. We're going to take a break for commercials. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, I need to remind everybody that Republic Broadcasting is in the middle of a fundraising drive. Yes, we're always in the middle of a fundraising drive here because we need your help to stay on the air, to stay on the network, to stay up on the satellite, to keep broadcasting information so that you can make good choices here. So, again, a heartfelt thanks to those who've already donated, and a thanks to those who are about to donate, because I know you're out there, because every time we ask, some donations will come in. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Miles in Maine. Aloha, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Miles in Maine, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me, Michael?
I hear you now. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yeah, regards, Michael. In regards for Lady Claire, when she arrives, I wouldn't step out on a limb like that to say Trump wouldn't be elected if this all hadn't gone on, because the truth is Trump would probably be flying in, especially when his competition's Biden. So Trump would probably be soaring in with record numbers, I would say. But the question I had for you, maybe you can clarify this, I'm sure you can. This has all these projects and things, the Kennedy Center and this bill, different things like that. Why can't, when this thing goes to the Senate, why can't they yank that stuff out of there, put up a clean bill, and then let it be voted on? And if the Democrats don't support it, then there's the publicity for them to let everybody know what the hesitation and holdup is.
Well, I think the feeling was that the American people are tired of waiting, and that any delay is going to basically backflash on the Congress as a whole.
I think it's time to really start laying more of this with the laws at the feet of the Democrats. I mean, they never wanted the border closed. They never wanted anything sealed. They didn't do anything to stop any type of immigration. And now there's refugee money in there, just what we don't need. I mean, now we're going to bring refugees here that who knows what they've got. So, and I would make a point of it that it doesn't make sense. And, tell your Democratic congressman that you're going to fire them. But I don't think I'd let it go through if I was Trump. I think I'd send it to the Senate and say, line item veto or whatever you have to do, pull all this stuff out. We'll put up the bill that should be proposed, and if they vote against it, we'll let the Democrats take responsibility for their tactics, small tactics.
Well, the Democrats would just try and shift the blame back over to the Republicans, saying we couldn't vote for it because they wouldn't give us what we thought the people needed. In fact, that was basically the talking point Nancy Pelosi had all along, was that the current bill is corporate-centric rather than people-centric.
Well, Michael, I've been talking to a lot of Democrats, a lot of them, and even the most, should I say, skeptical or ones that are farther out of the Democrat mainstream. They're all saying that they're rebelling against this Democratic Party. Many of them oppose the impeachment itself, and I think it's exposing them more and more. Then this thing they went to do with Bernie. Now, I was looking at the numbers. It looks to me like Bernie is responsible for anywhere between like 30 to 37% of the Democratic Party's vote. If they walk away and they pull the lever for Trump out of spite or just stay home, it spells trouble for them. I don't think they have any room to play around, but I don't think Trump should take his foot off the gas pedal either. I think he should expose them at every point and make the burden on them really heavy.
I absolutely agree, and I think the Democratic leadership is rather oblivious to how much damage they've done to their brand over the last over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and then they take people like Tulsi Gabbard, who I don't like the gun policies, and I don't like her open borders policy, which of all of them, she's by clear and far the most sensible of all of them. And they relegate her to Ron Paul status and, a couple minutes here and there and see you later, goodbye.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about Tulsi a little bit later in the show because a lot of people.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Okay, well,
give
thank
my
you.
regards for Lady Claire. I hope she's healing up too, and you guys have a great weekend.
We certainly will. Thank you very much. I'm going to switch over to Francis in Coeur d'Alene. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Francis, are you there?
That was a long beep. Yeah, that was a long beep. I'm here. Are you?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Okay. Yeah, I got a new mantra for the federal government. We've got a printing press, and we aren't afraid to use it.
Okay, well, Francis, I'm going to have to put you on hold here because we got to take another commercial break. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Francis in Coeur d'Alene. And Francis, can you just sort of pick up where you left off? Francis dropped. Okay, then let's switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, you ever think of it that often the people who enjoy our American empire, policing the world and setting up military bases in the Middle East and picking and choosing what other country has what form of government, often that same psychological person are the ones who are alarmed about China becoming successful in capitalism and expanding their business into Africa. And whatever China does, they ascribe to China a sinister motive. So notice I've been listening to some of these people. They say, oh, the Chinese are expanding into Africa. Oh, my goodness, like I'm supposed to be alarmed. And yet, from what I've seen, I don't know about the Chinese building military bases in Africa. I don't see them supporting either Islamic terrorists or anti-Islamic terrorists in Africa. I really don't see them doing anything other than just commerce. Now, you would think people who advocate capitalism and the virtues of it in public would be happy to watch the so-called Chinese communists be hypocrites and be capitalists and be very good capitalists and, practice capitalism and do trade in Africa and elsewhere throughout the world. Hey, since they're being capitalists and we're capitalists, isn't that, shouldn't we be getting along on that issue? Isn't that supposed to be a good thing that they're doing capitalism?
Well, not really, because the thinking is, our capitalism is good and their capitalism is bad. And,
But you know how they always say, right. But one of the things that tropes they always trot out is that nations that trade between each other don't go to war with each other. That's one of the same common platitudes spouted out by those same imperial-minded people.
True. But what has the United States to trade with anymore? We gave all of our manufacturing away. China's a manufacturing superpower. We're not anymore.
Exactly. And what's funny about all of this, now here we are in a national emergency, and we're so degenerate that we just can inflate the money supply and print the money because we don't have the fiscal discipline to save up trillions of dollars and just have it in the bank for a rainy day, like a rainy day fund, like housewives do, right? We are unable to just save up maybe a few trillion and have it, handy. Now, where did a few $trillion go? Where did we spend it? Where'd it go? I know. We spent it some in Afghanistan. We spent some in Iraq. And who was against that, by the way? Who was pretty much against Iraq and the Middle Eastern wars? Oh, that's right. The communist Bernie Sanders. And it's funny also, why don't we have the money? Why aren't the industries here? Oh, that's right. One of the reasons some of the industries aren't in the United States is because of NAFTA. And the Republican Party back in the 90s pushed that through and sent business to Mexico and outsourced to Mexico. But wait a minute, who was against that, Michael? Oh, that's right. Bernie Sanders was against and voted against NAFTA. So, gee, the dirty communist Bernie Sanders would have, if we had listened to him, maybe we would have saved up money into that rainy day fund for events like this. And we could have just taken the money out of our savings and not need to inflate, not need to print money, and we could be taking care of our domestic issues right now. Because, hey, and by the way, maybe if we had listened to some of the nationalists like Pat Buchanan,
yes,
maybe our drug manufacturers would have been here for the past 30 years. But you see, we listened to the capitalists. We listened to the internationalists who thought, oh, it's okay. Well, let's make the Chinese capitalists. You see, this is the irony of all this, you know? And now that China is better at capitalism than we are, we have our panties in a twist. And we're all flummoxed and angry and in debt and wondering what happened and don't know what to do. And who do we vote for? Who do we elect into office? The same international capitalists, even I would argue Donald Trump, who is working with the Republicans and the Democrats in both parties, because I don't see any legislation going forward to return these industries back to the United States. Maybe it's just going to be drugs and that's it, right? But I don't see any long-term promotion of a repatriation of American industry going on.
No, that's one of Trump's big failures.
And I guess when we're at the same standard of living as the Chinese, or we are even lower wages, earning lower wages than the Chinese, then our gracious, kind American corporations might deem it worthy enough at those low wages to repatriate those factories that were created, engineered, designed, and discovered by American citizens. On that note, Michael, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I was listening to your last caller, and you didn't mention anything about Ross Perot and that giant sucking sound. I was shocked. And Ross Perot's a capitalist.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Just because you don't have to be a socialist or a liberal or Republican or, anything other in between or get away from all the isms or anything else. You don't even have to be a genius to realize that free trade cannot work, especially if the country that wants to have a free trade agreement with another country is 10 times as big, has 10 times the military, and also has the world's reserve currency. That's the big one right there.
Yes, that is the big one. And unfortunately, the United States has weaponized the dollar, and other countries are aware that's what's been going on, which is why they're trying to move away from the dollar right now.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is, the people in power in the United States don't like that.
No, they don't.
So they tend to beat them up. and bad things happen to the other countries. Like private central banks are put in and the gold is stolen and the leaders are usually killed one way or another.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of other people as well. And of course, the infrastructure is totally pulverized. And and this is my favorite, and in order to rebuild it, well, you have to take out a loan at where? The bank. Right?
Yes.
One big vicious circle. And
that's
exactly pretty much all I got to say, Mike, because like you and I talked about over a month ago, the economy of the world is literally crashing, and $2 trillion, Mike, and that's just the beginning. Up here in Canada, they're saying 140 billion. You got 10 times the amount of people, and I'm sure it's going to be higher. You have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We have the HMHC, I think it's called, the Home Mortgage Corporation. They're going to pump $150 billion into that. and keep this mortgage Ponzi scheme in Canada going. Mike, a townhouse in Canada is selling, like not far from where I live, is selling for $600,000 plus condo fees. Mike, $600,000. That's insane. You know, how much do you have to earn a year to pay that? The old formula was a quarter, $150,000. Who makes that? I'm skilled labor. I don't make anywhere near that, Mike. This is incredibly stupid. And it's socialism. It is socialism to do this sort of thing. To bail all this stuff out, and it's happening in the States too. And what keeps happening? The poor get poorer, the rich get richer, and prices skyrocket.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what's the answer?
The answer is they keep pushing it the way they've been pushing it until it does have a real dramatic crash, and this could be the beginning of it.
Yep, and you know what? If it is, then once again, you're going to be right. Mike, I appreciate your time. You have a good one. I know your show's a lot shorter, so I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'd love to hear the rest of the callers. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we're going to switch to another one of those callers right now. Mark in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, what's up? Hey, how you feeling, by the way?
I'm feeling much better, and hopefully in another 3 months, I'm going to be off all of this medication and back to normal.
That's good. I've been still listening to you since you came back, but I haven't called in a few days. But anyway, this guy yesterday just called about stock market and all that. I think the stock market is on. I don't think it's going to come back from this. I know it's now spurting a little bit because these criminals are actually buying their own stock and are shorting and all this other kind of stuff. But I really don't think it. I think the stock market as we know it is pretty much finished. It's probably going to be something else replacing it. And I think capitalism as we know it is pretty much done. I don't think we're going to have communism, but I think we're going to have some kind of a hybrid, kind of like Russia has. I think people are really starting to see through what's going on, that these people do not care about us. They care about they care about the rich, the 1%. They don't care about the majority of us. And I really don't think. I think we're headed towards. I don't know if we're going to head towards a revolution. I don't think it's going to be a violent revolution. I think it's going to be just people are going to. There might be civil disobedience, all that, and people are going to make it clear that that's it. You're not getting away with this anymore. We want that money out of Wall Street. We want it distributed to the people. We want these big corporations brought under control. We want these tech companies, which I think are very dangerous. We want them broken up and, using German antitrust laws to stop them. And we got to stop the robots. That's another thing we got to do. We got to start making clear you're not going to be automating our jobs. If I was president, what I would do is every job that you automate, if you put a robot in there, you're going to have to pay for each employee that loses a job or is deprived of a job. You're going to have to pay for each of those robots 5 times in taxes the salary of the worker that was replaced or won't get a job now because of your stupid robot. We got to start, in other words, we got to start making America, the United States again, country for people, by the people, not for the special interests, not for the corporations. And if you want to call it socialism, go right ahead. Personally, economically, I mean, I'm very far to the right on social issues. Like as far as guns go, I personally believe not only the Second Amendment, but I don't think there should be any kind of controls on guns. I think you should have the constitutional carry. That's my thing. But as far as like on economic issues, Bernie Sanders looks like a Reagan Republican to my beliefs on economic issues. And I didn't always feel like that, but I've seen it. What's been happening since 2008. I've seen the Wall Street. I've seen people get richer and richer. Very few people getting richer and richer. And the rest of us getting poorer and poorer. And that's not right. It's not right, Mike. And why I say, I don't think it's gonna. I haven't even followed the stock market the last few days because it's worthless. Because it's whatever it goes, it's phony money. They're playing with phony money now. So I don't know if it went up or down today, but I think pretty much we're seeing the end of a lot of this, what I call predatory capitalism, because that's really what it is. It's not crony capitalism. It's a predatory form of capitalism where the rich not only own more and more, squeeze the rest of it. Look at housing. When you look at housing, why is California, New York, places like that so expensive? It's not just because, it has to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. They're setting up zoning laws and all that to favor them. Meanwhile, because you live in Mid-America now, you see how much less housing is a place like Indiana. There's no reason you have to pay $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for some hole-in-the-wall house in California or New York. When you can get for $100,000, you can get yourself a 2,000 square foot brand new home with land in many places still.
Yes.
No reason for that. And the other thing too, if they want people to move out of the city, if their plan is to crowd people into the city like Agenda 21, it's backfired because people are realizing now you cannot live in these cities. Look what's happening in New York, coronavirus. It's terrible. And I think after this, you're going to see New York, it's not turned into a ghost town. It's not going to be the capital of, it's not going to be the financial or communication capital of the world anymore. It's going to be just some city on a coast, and people are going to realize, it's not worth, and in other words, it's going to be very insignificant, and the population is going to be greatly reduced because nobody wants to go through this again. It is horrible. I don't know if it's a biological weapon or not. I haven't figured that out yet. Sometimes I think it is. Sometimes I think it isn't. But whatever it is, goes to show that we're not prepared for these things. And the worst place you can live is in a big city. And I don't know if that's about it, Mike.
Well, I don't like living in big cities. I lived in the suburbs of Southern California, and I did live briefly in New York City itself, and I did not like the experience. But even before the coronavirus came along, the cities between the illegal immigrants and the refugees and all of that, the quality of life was deteriorating, not to mention the homeless problem and the poop patrols. Anyway, listen, Mark, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercial. We got more callers waiting on the line, and at the top of the hour, the lovely Lady Claire. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to try and fit 2 calls into this segment here, starting with Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I'm really kind of upset about this stimulus bill, but what's got me most upset about it is what Trump said and how he treated Representative Massey from Kentucky right across the border from where I'm at. And the guy says that the congressmen, the representatives, should vote and be on record on how they vote for this stimulus bill, which I think is a fair enough thing for a congressman to ask. And then to have the President of the United States come out there and attack him for what? For wanting to have the guy go on record and everybody else how they vote and say that he should be thrown out of the Republican Party. I mean, Trump really showed his hand on this. I mean, he didn't say that about Senator Burr, who used inside information of this coronavirus so he could cash in on his stock for a big gain before they collapsed. He didn't say anything about Romney. He saves his viciousness for a libertarian, conservative, Republican populace. And he doesn't have any. He doesn't seem to have any spite or any kind of out-speaking against the rhinos, and the sellouts and the corporatists. So I think Trump really did show his hand in his attacking this, congressman who was very principled. They call him Congressman No, because he pretty much votes no on everything. And what he wanted was not that extreme, to want everybody's vote to go on record. And for Trump to say that about him, that he should be thrown out of the Republican Party, really is shameful. And what's most shameful about it is I see Trump being pretty nice to all the, rhinos. I see him pretty nice to all the Republicans like Lindsey Graham, and I don't hear him saying it to throw Richard Burr out of the Senate as a Republican Party, who should be. I mean, what he did, and what's her name, Loughran from Georgia, and I think I forgot
You'd
the
have to
last
throw out a
guy's
whole
name.
bunch of them. They were all cashing in on that inside information.
Yeah, but you see, to Trump, that's acceptable because Trump's a businessman and he's a money man. So doing that, trading on insider knowledge, leave him in the Republic. That's what Republicans do, right? But to be principled like this man and saying, hey, and it wasn't going to delay anything. It was just going to make them have to be on record about where their votes were, which I guess they all know they're going to have it shoved up their you-know-what when everything falls apart, because of the hyperinflation this is probably going to create. So I'm really upset about Trump and how he reacted to this, and I'm kind of upset about him for other things. It's like everything else has gone off the radar because of this coronavirus. I wanted to see Barr testify in front of Congress. I want to see the arrests of these deep state coup plotters. The world, it's almost like they all getting a break because of this coronavirus. And no, the military's still operational. The country's still got to, the whole thing's pissing me off. But anyway, thanks for letting me vent.
All right, thanks an awful lot here, Joe. We're going to take a station identification break. We're going to take these last two calls on the other side of the break here with the lovely Lady Claire in attendance. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We're going to take 2 more phone calls before we get to the lovely Lady Claire. So let's go with Tom in Washington. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Heard from a caller earlier in your show, and he touched on a couple topics that I thought was kind of interesting. One was the event 201, and I'm just wondering if you've seen any of the footage that was recorded from that event.
Not too much of it. I mean, I'm aware of Event 201, and I'm aware basically that they were wargaming a pandemic back there end of last year.
Yeah. There's a lot of footage out there. I haven't watched all of it myself. I think it's probably about 4 hours worth. If you go to Google or YouTube and you type in World Economic Forum Event 201, it's broken up into 5 segments, and I think each segment's roughly 40 minutes long. It varies from one to the next, but just the timing of it taking place last year on October 18th in New York, just extremely interesting, the timing. And then the other thing that he mentioned was the stock market and gold and silver stocks. And I was just curious. I've purchased silver for quite a number of years. I haven't for a while now because it's just been really flat for quite a long time. But I still have all of it in my possession, and I don't plan on letting any of it go anytime soon. But getting to the gold and silver stocks, it could be good. Silver and gold and platinum and palladium and even rhodium have just been crushed recently, and so now they're starting to come back up. But to anybody that's thinking about getting into paper stocks, as far as gold and silver stocks, at the end of the day, the question is, if you need to get your money back out, what is that going to look like? And if we go into, hyperinflation type scenario, you're going to get your money back in paper, not physical silver or gold.
Yes.
And so, I was curious today. I went out to Gainesville Coins. It's a website that I bought coins from for, like I said, many years in the past. And there's really nothing out there. You can't get any silver coins. They're all completely out of stock. And the only gold coins that you can get are 1-ounce rounds that are 2020 coins. And even those, I don't believe they have them on hand. They don't ship out until a good half a month or more after you place your order. Everything else is completely out of stock. So kind of caught wind about that a few days ago. Hadn't got around to checking until now, but sure enough, things are drying up out there. And the interesting thing as well is premiums are really diverging from the COMEX prices. So at the end of trading today, silver was at about $14.45 an ounce. And just a few weeks ago, if you wanted to buy an ounce of silver, for example, a U.S. Mint silver coin, you'd be looking at maybe $1.30 premium. Now it's $7.
Yeah,
That's a very intense, significant drop, Mike.
Well, it's a gain actually, but
Okay. Yeah.
we're starting to see the
Yeah,
prices
that's
for
about 48%.
Yeah, we're starting to see the physical prices break away
Yes.
from the manufactured spot prices, which include the paper trade.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting is, all the old coins are out, right? So if you wanted 2018, 2019, or random date coins, they're all gone. So that tells you that the mints are even having what looks like maybe a hard time keeping up with demand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say people, are going to quality, and there's no higher quality than precious metal.
Yeah, so anyway, just a comment really and an observation. So thank you both, Mike and Claire, for your show. Love it.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to take one more phone call from Tom in Florida, and then we're going to get on to Lady Love here. So, Tom in Florida, what's on your mind?
Very, very good day to you and lovely Lady Claire, Michael. Yeah, I have a 1961 old Starfire car. I'm still trying to figure out. I want to put a flex capacitor in the thing so I can go back to the future, I guess. But,
Yeah, well, don't forget to look for the drugs in the glove box.
yeah, I got you. Plutonium, whatever. Yeah, Michael. What I want to say is a couple of your callers. The one caller was talking about the guy Byrne. I agree that that guy should step down. He should be gone. But that guy's got to remember, you got Feinstein on the other side, Democrat, that she should be gone. She had a Chinese spy in her office. Nobody ever brings that up much with the Chinese guy working with Feinstein. And that's a little perplexing to me. And then you also have the situation with Ocasio-Cortez still wanting these illegals to get checks. This $1,200 thing with this bill, and I agree with that. The one congressman from Kentucky, Massey, I guess he's got it right. We want to see who's going to vote for this bill. I know they stripped that out for the illegals. I'm hoping and praying, right, Michael, on that? Well, that's good news. And I also want to mention that here in South Florida, they're talking about Maduro. Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel, Fort Lauderdale, said that they have a $55 million bounty on Maduro's arrest. I don't think anybody's, unless Colombia goes against them, I don't think the United States is that crazy right now to do that. I don't know.
They have supposedly charged him with narco-terrorism, which is, who knows what that's supposed to mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same thing they charged Noriega with before they invaded Panama. So this may, in fact, be a signal of a coming U.S. invasion of Venezuela, which right now, with coronavirus dominating the corporate media, could even be happening right now, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Yes. Michael, breaking over the news wire, too, I saw about 20 minutes ago, is the president of Mexico is saying the poor people of Mexico don't have to worry. They won't get the coronavirus. Only the rich ones will. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Oh.
So he's saying now that if you're poor and I guess your immunity system can handle the coronavirus better than if you're rich and eating better foods in Mexico. I'm like, I don't understand all that, but I saw that. I'm like, what the heck is that all about? But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, no, I can understand where he's coming from on that, because, the rich people are pampered. They're not exposed to the illnesses that the poor are. Mm-hmm. They probably don't have the same immune systems that the poor do. I think that's where the president of Mexico is coming from.
Unfortunately, I think that on this issue, he is very much dipping into magical thinking.
Could very well be.
I mean, I don't think the science...
I agree with you, Claire. I agree.
Yeah, it's not supported by science.
Well, one thing, Michael, you are right about. If you a person who lives in a third world country can drink the water down there and not get too sick. If a person from comes from another place that goes to one of those countries, they will get deadly sick. Drinking the water, we all know that. Revenge. There's no question. But and I got one more thing, and then I know you got other callers. The guy was talking about the housing situation. Indiana, it's a lot cheaper than buying a house in Hawaii or California, New York. And you kind of basically hit on it, Michael. It has a lot to do with the population, the immigration numbers, the different identity. That's one thing. But I remember 5 years ago, I have a friend of mine. He went to Detroit, Michigan. He liked the area. He bought 3 houses up there. He paid a total of like $35,000 for 3 nice homes in Detroit. And he actually stopped it from being bulldozed. And he told me, I haven't talked to this gentleman in like a couple of years now, because he's moved up he's up in Michigan, But he did tell me that there's a big Chinese population up there in Detroit, very big. A lot of them went from San Francisco into the heartland of which is Michigan, Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very big population over there, and because they got the houses for very cheap, they were buying these houses for $5,000, $10,000, and they fixed them up, and they, you know, so they kind of brought some parts of Detroit back to its glory days. Because absolutely, Detroit was the richest city in the United States in 1948.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It was the richest city, and unfortunately, I guess it's we know what's basically going on there, but you know, the Chinese did come in there, and I guess they made the area better. I don't know, you don't hear too much about Detroit much anymore, but they have gambling there, and I've been up there in quite a while, but it's, you know, it was a great city at one time. You can see how wonderful Detroit must have been in the early 30s and 40s. It was
yeah,
it was Motor City.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and so now we don't hear too much about it, but in those houses, Michael, were built. Some of the best homes ever built were in Detroit, believe it or not. They can withstand a Category 5 tornado. Some of them houses. There's no doubt about it. So, you know, as far as the housing, you know, New York and even Florida, Michael, that's another reason that a lot of people I talk to, we don't want all these New Yorkers and New Jerseys coming here because they're going to jack the price up of all the homes up in northern Florida and South Florida here. It's crazy. Back in the day, you could buy a house here in South Florida for very reasonable price. Now they're all going for $500,000. Places turning out to be like San Francisco in the next 5-10 years. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a little cracker box house here in South Florida is going for almost $400,000 now.
Yikes!
Amazing.
Well, I remember when I was working on the film, The Day After Tomorrow. We rented this little tiny, and I mean tiny
Mm-hmm.
apartment on Hyde Street, and we were paying, you know, huge amounts of money for that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And you know, it was like a 1-bedroom with there was basically the front entry, the living room, and the bedroom. It didn't even really have a kitchen.
And the fire escape.
And the fire escape. We were allowed to use the fire escape for the money we were paying, and we got to, you know, lie there at night listening to those foghorns going off on the Golden Gate Bridge here and everything. And it was kind of an interesting cultural experience for a short duration, but I can't imagine that we would have been happy living there on any prolonged amount of time.
Yeah.
But here in Indiana, I mean, we're paying less than half the rent that we were paying on Oahu for much more floor space.
Oh yeah. Really like.
Well, yeah, Michael. In San Francisco, you have such a big homeless population. Where are they putting all those homeless now with this coronavirus? They going in gymnasiums? Where are they putting all these people?
Oh.
San Francisco with the situation there. They have YMCA's or what? That's a good question. I don't know where they're putting all the homeless there. Are they putting them on Navy ships out in the bay there or something?
Well, I don't know. They've got the mothball fleet over there in the other side of the bay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know, because I don't think we're actually getting really told where those people are being allowed to be, and particularly in the time of this pandemic.
Right. Well, so, you know, I just did that one caller that called in about the homeless situation in New York, New Jersey. I can see why those. I believe the reason those people are trying to flee, other than this Corona Wuhan hoax, or not a hoax, but it's the Wuhan virus, is that they're coming to Florida and, you know, the Carolinas, because they're getting taxed to death on top of having a virus that's killing. You know, it's economic and it's a pandemic. So it's crazy. It really is. But our government here in Florida's like trying to stop it. So we'll see.
All right. Well, Tom, listen, we're going to let you go here because it's time for the Lady Claire to have the microphone here. So thank you very much for the phone call. Have a good weekend, you too. All right. So, Claire, what's the first thing you want to talk about?
Well, a little bit around the COVID-19 crisis. And, Mike, this is a question I think that needs to be asked and intelligently and truthfully answered. I'd like your input here, because you're the science guy in this little home too. If this virus was not a bioengineered weapon, why did it appear to species jump so rapidly, allegedly, from bat to human? Talk to me about this.
Well, Here's the big question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can the human coronavirus still infect the original host, meaning the bats?
Okay.
Because that would be a dead giveaway. When a pathogen jumps species, it
Mm-hmm.
can always be made to reinfect the original host.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why the official story about HIV is suspect,
Mhm.
because the virus that is identified as causing HIV cannot be used to reinfect the green vervet monkey, which is where the official story says this all originated.
Yeah.
As far as the rapidity, well, we don't know how long the virus was gestating, if you will, within the bat.
Mhm.
There was a report that there was an incident at the Wuhan BSL-4 laboratory where
Mhm.
they were working with bats and bat viruses, and apparently there was an altercation between a bat and a scientist in which blood was shed.
Oh boy.
And that may have been the initiating event.
Yeah, that's possible. What I think needs to happen is governments have got to stop playing the blame game. And we should be having every respected virologist internationally working collaboratively, country to country, to stop this. Now, Mike, my understanding is this cannot happen without an open access to the decoding of its DNA sequence and wherever that ultimately leads. And I do not see any current DNA sequencing on this that has been made public in any way, shape, or form, right?
I'm sorry, I was looking at something
okay.
from the control
All right.
room here.
Yeah.
One more time?
I was saying we need to have the world's virologists working in a complementary way to decoding that DNA sequence of the virus and wherever that logically leads.
Well, there's two complications. One, there's a lot of countries that are working cooperatively to decode that. The United States is still sort of keeping its hands close to its vest here. The other problem, though, is, of course, the virus is mutating. There are now 40 different strains out there in the wild that they're aware of.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think by this point they already have the DNA decoded. That would make sense with modern technology. The question is, how do you deal with it? How do you cure it? And here in the United States, of course, the focus is not on a cure, but on a vaccine.
Yeah. Well, I did a little bit of digging, and apparently the United States has had biological weapons programs going since 1943 under the authorization of Franklin Roosevelt. So, folks, we have been doing this officially for 77 years, and heaven knows that we don't know what's really been created under this program because,
But we do know that the U.S. used biological warfare against North Korea and against Cuba and probably against others. And a lot of people are wondering, isn't it an amazing coincidence that the two countries that were hit first by this COVID-19 are the two countries the United States considers to be threats to its interests, China and Iran?
Yeah. The second thing is, in this country, there has to be a willingness to use drugs which may or may not have been manufactured or are not licensed in the U.S., but have been scientifically proven. I mean, we've got to listen to the science right now. Yes, I'm a Christian. I'm a person of prayer, but I believe that prayer has to be paired with practicality, okay? And if we have scientific proof to even help the COVID-19 victims get better, I think we should be doing that. And we need to be grateful that at least here in the United States, most probably, you can get treated for it if of course you have insurance. Now, I would not want to be living in Italy right now because Jerusalem Post posted an article from a volunteer doctor who learned, and Italy, by the way, has suffered more coronavirus-related fatalities than China right now. And apparently, Channel 12 reported on Sunday that his instructions from the hospital where he has volunteered to work was to not offer respirators to people over 60, as they didn't have enough to go around. I would also like the artists who have chosen to do a little more than moan existentially about how horrible their self-isolation is in grand surrounding expressed by selfies. But I want to tip my hat to those who have given something of their wealth to the hospitals and medical facilities that are desperately needed because equipment has been running out. And this shouldn't have been necessary to do, but God bless those who are trying to help and doing it realistically. And another thing I'd like to talk about right now are our long-suffering preppers who have been demonized within an inch of their lives for having done something at what they have done and the reasons they've done it. And you probably remember the descriptions, which included crazed, nuts, off their rockers, off their meds, or just a few sandwiches short of a picnic basket. Now, that's Mike's, but I thought it was a good one to add.
Mine is 2 beers short of a six-pack.
Ah, okay. All right. And now I've got a bet that I am willing to make. Now, you know that when I post, there are many times when I use the phrase, were I a betting woman? But this is a bet that where I'm prepared to deliver. And I will be willing to bet you $1 US.
Hold on that thought.
Hold that thought.
Hold on that thought. We're going to come right back after these words from our client.
Okay.
Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we were talking with Lady Claire, who has a wager.
Yes.
That she wants to put out.
While supplies last, I'm ready to bet 1 US penny that the people we saw physically wounding other people in lines at the big box stores in those horrific videos that were all over the net were not preppers.
I'd say that's a safe bet.
In fact, the preppers watching this were probably laughing certain parts of their anatomy off. I mean,
I was.
Off. You know, and what we need to do right now, folks, we need to pull back and look through this with a long lens of history. Humankind as a species is a very hubristic bunch. And I'm quite sure that if you had mentioned a pandemic which would allegedly wipe off the stock market gains of the last 3 years, ultimately infect hundreds of thousands and kill mercilessly on top of types of businesses being wiped clean out, along with fragile supply chains, leaving people who have not prepped in the lurch massively. Oh, heck, that can't happen here. Well, folks, it just did. And the reality is, no section of our government really had a plan for a situation so global and severe, both economically and medically. And we really were kind of left on our own for quite some time, while federal and state governments were figuring out how not to let this crisis go to waste, and were desperately trying to play catch up to the realities that we were facing. Guys, crud has happened. Crud is happening, and crud will continue to happen. Mike, you had...
Yeah, I had a comment here that what we're seeing, and they're getting ready for another coronavirus task force briefing, where they seem more concerned with looking like they're doing something than actually doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe because there's nothing they can do.
Yeah. I would say appearance rather than reality is the name of the game. So, folks, I would like to recommend a prepper who's also an author. Right now, her name is Daisy Luther. Please Google her. And I would suggest that you just might want to consider investing in one of her books or ebooks. There is a vast treasure trove of horse sense in what this gal suggests you do to adapt prepping to your own life and lifestyle. Again, the lady's name is Daisy Luther. Google her. I think that you will be appreciative of how she presents what she presents. It's very simple language, to the point, very intelligently put together. So you might want to do that.
And prepping is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not just buying a closet full of stuff. Claire and I are preppers. We have been going all the way back, to Southern California and being in the earthquakes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we've made our share of mistakes along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Which we hope we'll share with you so that you don't go through the same things that we did.
Yes.
With the palm to forehead moment saying, why didn't I think of that ahead of time?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw a cartoon the other day. It was really kind of cool. It was about this family down in an underground bunker, and it's just absolutely filled wall to wall with rolls of toilet paper. And the father is saying, did anybody think to bring any food down here?
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. So we need to prepare ourselves and figure out what we can do as individuals to protect ourselves and those we care about if the excrement does hit the fan at warp speed right after COVID-19.
There's always going to be another crisis. There's
Yeah.
going to be another tornado. There's
Yeah.
going to be another flash flood. There's going to be another earthquake. There's going to be another volcano yapping all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, every place you live, there's going to be a threat, and you need to be aware of it and prepared to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And of course, some of the homes in this area, because of where we were and the weather fronts and etc., have emergency shelters, basements.
Yeah, tornado cellars.
Yeah, exactly, because we do get them in this part of the country.
We don't have one here. That's probably why our rent is so low.
You know, I kind of wondered about that. I kind of did wonder. I'd like to go into this next segment right after the break, which we're coming up on right now, and talk about what you can do for yourself and the people you care about. It's simple stuff, but it's stuff that you need to, if you have not before now thought about prepping, now is the absolute time.
Actually, it may be a little late because those stores are empty.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they really, really are.
Yeah, definitely.
All righty. So, actually, we're going to start a phone call real quick with Dustin in New Jersey.
Yes.
Dustin, I'm going to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, I've been this happened like Sunday. I woke up like in sweating like crazy. So I went outside. I just laid on the concrete, and my family member found me, and I came back in and laid in the hall for like 2 hours with the shakes.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ow.
and well, long story short, I started getting like the pains in my lower part of the stomach and going up the center of my chest. So I went today to get swabbed.
Okay.
For coronavirus, because it's pretty scary because I wasn't sure. Like, I'll hold over.
Yeah, hold over, and we'll be back with Dustin after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And Dustin, apparently you had some kind of a medical crisis 5 days ago.
Yep. And, I'm not sure. Tomorrow they said they'll get me the results, or Sunday. That's going to go how it works over here. They won't let you into the medical complex at all.
Yeah.
You come up to this billboard, and you got to dial this number, and then they'll tell you what town you're from. So when you hit the number pad on the keypad, the phone will ring, and they'll connect you with somebody in the office, a nurse. And then once she gets all your information, you got to give her, your medical documents and all that. They, the doctor will talk to you, and then once they figure out you got some of the symptoms, then you got to drive out to this tent, a 3-lane tent, and pull your car up, and then they swab my nose and both nostrils. They didn't do my throat, though. And then they checked your temperature. My temperature's been fine. I asked him, he said, different people, some people aren't getting temperatures. So that's multiple strains maybe. Different people have different body types. But my temperature's been fine, 98.5, 98.3, whatever, I've been checking it. But yet, it was odd because this is going on, the coronavirus, and then I come down with this, with the shakes, with the sweats, with the pains in my chest. I'm like, at this moment in time, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go. And if it's not that, then I got to go back to the hospital because it's something else. But, just to be on the safe side.
Are you still suffering those symptoms?
Huh?
Are you still having those symptoms?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I still get the shivers, but I'm not having too many sweats anymore. But the pains in my chest still, the lower part and the center of my chest, they said my respiratory system seems clear. My breathing's fine. But that center part of your chest, it feels like it's filled up. I get this bubbling on the sides of my sides. And he said, that's one of the signs for this, but depending on your body. So I'll find out tomorrow or Sunday, but I just want to let people know, that's why I get mad. People saying this is a hoax or this or that. Well, I don't know, but I mean, you're going to take the chance of, because my mom lives in the house too, so I don't want to get her sick. We kind of stay away. Everybody's separate from each other, but it's still a scary thing. You don't want to pass. Yeah, you don't want to pass it on. Like if Mike, you get it, you don't want to pass it on to Claire or vice versa. It's like it's a scary thing. you know. But I'm 49. I'm kind of healthy. You know, I don't eat Big Macs and stuff. You know, I made vegetable soup the other day, and, you know, I eat pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
6 foot tall and 160. You know, I'm not, like, chubby. I'm kind of thin, you know. But it's odd, like, you know, I got hit like that. Just came out like that, you know. And, yeah, so, I'll let you know Monday what my, you know.
Please do.
You know,
Please do.
Yeah, but, like, I just want to let everybody know, like, you know, you got to keep these things in mind, and I just wish people would stop saying this is like one big hoax because the Amazing Polly said, or this or that.
No.
You know, you know, I mean, I don't know. You know, I'll find out. You know, but like, but you guys take care of each other, okay?
All right, we certainly will, and hopefully you'll be feeling better very, very soon. And I hope the test comes back negative. Although obviously there's something going on here.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to switch over and take another phone call from Mark in Georgia. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay, I hope you're listening. Write this down. Shiva, 4, Senate.com, and he proposes a remedy where we basically need to boost people's immune system because we have viruses around us all the time. The main problem is not the virus. The problem is that people are immune compromised because of the low quality food. And
Mark,
yes,
Mark, are you on a speakerphone?
I'm on a Bluetooth because I'm driving. So can you hear me, Shiva?
It's a little hard.
Let me turn down the AC. That's better?
Yeah, why don't you repeat that website one more time, and then we're going to let you go.
All right, Shiva, this guy's Indonesian, Shiva like the Hindu deity, Shiva, 4, Senate.com, and he is advocating a better way of treating this situation than going off the deep end. By the way, hoax does not mean that people aren't suffering and dying. It means that what we're being led to believe and what's really happening are two different things. That makes sense? So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's Shiva4Senate.com. And Mark, we're going to let you go here and get back to Claire because Claire wants to talk about what people should be thinking about as they prep for what could turn out to be a long lockdown.
Yeah. And thank you for the call.
Take it away.
Okay. I know I sound like a chip CD on this, but please, you need to think about and start putting together an action plan to have long-term storing foods, potable water, any meds that you, the people you love, and your pets take regularly. Now, I'm on an anti-statin medication, and I don't think any doctor worth their salt would worry about letting me double up on getting the prescription in my home, because what if the supply chain breaks down?
True.
At the drugstore where I go. Another, the name of which I cannot remember, same thing for a medication I take weekly to prevent my bones from breaking.
Fosamax.
No, it's something else.
It's something else.
It's something else, and I can't remember. Also, if you're thinking about taking...
There's your memory pills. You've got to take those too.
Oh, stop it. Also, if you take supplements, try to find some supplements with some actual reproducible science behind them. Now, I was reading in Blacklisted News last week are doing during this pandemic, and besides having some really fabulous places to hang out, one of the things they are doing is taking intravenous cocktails of vitamins to help the body help its immune system take care of you. Now, there was a number that rather staggered me. I don't know if it's right or not, but the doctor prescribing these treatments said that 90% of Americans have a vitamin deficiency. Now, Mike, I'm not particularly sold on that number, but what I'd want to do would be I would want to find out which vitamins I would be deficient in to know exactly what to take and how much of that vitamin to take.
Well, that would take a blood test.
Yeah.
That's how they found out I was deficient in B and D.
Yeah, right. And I think once things settle down to a slightly duller roar, if you are concerned about this, particularly if you are a little older, I turned 71 this May, so yeah, I'm in that category. Now, when you're talking about building a pantry for yourself, I think there are several things you need to consider. One is there is some stuff you're going to eat immediately. Second, freeze or dehydrate stuff you are not going to eat immediately. And learn the art of slow cooking. And one thing that, if you're only a family of two, this may not be practical, but if you have maybe 3 or 4 friends who might be open to this, look at buying a freezer that everyone can share, divide the price, pay for it in cash. Now, this means that when you can find fresh food at reasonable prices, you can freeze it until you want to eat it. And I think that over time, the savings will be very, very good in terms of the cost effectiveness of having that. And if you've never slow cooked or crock pot cooked before, I think that there are people in the younger generations who maybe have never used an oven to actually bake or slow cook. And this skill, while we still have electricity, is probably a good one to have, and something you could actually barter with some good tasting food for other necessities you may not. And this is also a way of reaching out to maybe some socially isolated older people in your family or beyond. And I'm willing almost to bet you that most of them did learn to slow cook because it was a survival method back in the day. And guess what, folks? It is today as well.
They probably know how to cook over an open fire, which is going to be a skill in demand.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And if you can, with cell rates being as low as they are, if you can get a cell phone for them with a FaceTime feature on it so they can speak to you when they can see you, and they can walk you through maybe a simple recipe that you're maybe doing for the first time and something that they did as a matter of course when they were teenagers.
Now, if you don't have the Apple products, which is where FaceTime hangs out, there's also Skype, which is cross-platform.
That's good to know. Thank you. I would imagine it's going to make those people feel really, really good because all of a sudden their knowledge of the old skills is going to become useful and survival necessary very soon.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that you can do is to continue to become more literate, numerate, and more logical. These are skills which can critically affect your ability to survive very tough times. And folks, we're in them right now, and these will not go away. The tough times are not going to go away overnight.
Certainly not by Easter.
Oh, no, heck no. I mean, this is the first Easter in a lot of years when I will not be able to celebrate Easter in a church. We're going to do it live streaming, and I thank God for that, but I'm going to miss being at church, brother and sister Christians celebrating it. Also, use those skills, please, the numeracy, literacy, and logic, to acquaint yourself about what agendas your government is pushing with social media, corporate press, in print, on telly, and online. Because the more you know, and the more quickly you know, the better you are going to be able to defend yourself and those you care about from various agendas your government is pushing, which are not necessarily good for we the people. Also, please avail yourself of the foreign press in English, which is very helpful in understanding what the U.S. corporate prostitutes don't want you hearing about or thinking about. Now, this is something you need to chew on intellectually. Please remember, there is no law which compels any online, television, or print outlet to actually tell you the truth. Now, this got kind of thrown in our faces left-handed by the court case Fox versus, Mike, do you pronounce that Aker or Akre?
It's Aker.
Aker Johnson.
Yep.
And what this is the reality that the media can legally lie to you. They're allowed to do that. And this was in the spring of 2003. Court ruled that media can legally lie. Now, this comes to us from Leanne Castor, Organic Consumer Association, in 2004. And the title of the article, Florida Appeals Court ordered Aker Wilson must pay trial costs for $24.3 billion to Fox Television. Couple warns dangers to journalists on free speech and whistleblower protection. Now, what this was about, this husband and wife couple, Jane Aker and her husband Steve Wilson, were hired by Fox as part of their investigative team at WTVT in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now, in '97, the team began work on a story about bovine growth hormone, BGH, controversial substance manufactured, drumroll please, by the Frankenfoods Corporation, otherwise known as Monsanto. The couple produced a 4-part series revealing that there were health risks related to BGH and that Florida supermarket chains didn't really avoid selling milk from cows that were treated with hormones despite desperately assuring customers otherwise. Now, according to this couple, the station was originally very excited about the series, but within a week, Fox executives and their attorneys wanted the reporters to use statements from Monsanto representatives that the reporters knew were false and to make other revisions in the story that were in direct conflict with the facts. Then Fox editors tried to force or coerce Aker and Wilson to continue producing the distorted, non-factual story. When they refused and threatened to report Fox's actions to the FCC, they were both fired. Project Censored, number 12, 1997. Now, Aker and Wilson sued the Fox station, and on August 18, 2000, a Florida jury unanimously decided that Aker was wrongfully fired by Fox when she refused to broadcast, in the jury's words, a false, distorted, or slanted story about the widespread use of BGH in dairy cows. They further maintained that under protection under Florida's whistleblower laws, Aker was awarded a $425,000 settlement, but inexplicably, the court decided that Steve Wilson, her partner in the case, was ruled not wronged by the same actions taken by Fox against him. Go figure. Fox appealed the case, and on February 14th, 2003, the Florida 2nd District Court of Appeals unanimously overturned the settlement awarded to Aker, and the court held that Aker's threat to report the station's actions to the FCC did not deserve protection under Florida's whistleblower statute because Florida's whistleblower law states that an employer must violate an adopted rule, regulation, or law. So what they did was a very stunningly narrow interpretation of FCC rules, and the Florida Appeals Court claimed that the FPC policy against false statements or falsification of news does not rise to the level of law, rule, or regulation. It was simply a policy. Therefore, it's up to the individual stations as to whether or not it wants to report honestly.
And the same applies here to the online world here. See,
yeah.
We're not like George Washington. George Washington could not tell a lie.
Yeah.
We can, but we won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to also ask, and we're probably going to have to carry this over into the next
Well, we've
section.
got 2 callers waiting online.
Let's get those callers.
Okay, we're going to start with Chris in Clearwater. Yeah. And Chris, I'm probably going to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah.
Well, Michael, do you read me?
Yes.
You're on the air.
Okay. Well, if you go to circuit7.org, that's Florida's 7th Judicial Circuit, and you go down to the bottom, near the bottom in large print, click on Emergency Court Procedures, COVID-19. That's an administrative order that was signed March 17th by Chief Judge of the Circuit, Raul A. Zambrano, and it affects Flagler, Putnam, St. John's, and Volusia County. And the most alarming part
put you on hold, Chris. Chris, I got to put you on hold. Just hold right there. Hang up. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today, we're talking with Chris in Clearwater. And Chris, you were telling us about a decision by the Florida courts.
Yes, Administrative Order, Emergency Court Procedures, COVID-19 at circuit7.org. Go to the bottom in large print, click on Emergency Court Procedures, and you can read it all. most alarming points are where it says from March 18th until April 6th, court proceedings will be limited to those deemed, quote, mission critical, end quote, as defined below. And the two most alarming points are seizure of bodily fluid and mandatory vaccination proceedings. Now, there are no laws in Florida allowing for mandatory vaccinations of anyone yet. So we need to say no to vaccinations and fumigation, if that's what they call for, if in that eventuality, because they both lower the immune systems of all life forms. Thus, our chances for survival. And you can check out all the vaccine inserts where they say that if you're immunosuppressed, you should not be vaccinated.
Yes.
That's all vaccines. And you can check out the inserts at immunize.org/FDA. But I also wanted to bring up another preparedness tool that I think is very important. Water ionizers. They split the water into two streams, alkaline and acid, depending on the alkalinity and acidity, depending on what setting you have it. And the total of those two streams is 14, which is the range of the pH scale. So if you have, say, 2.5 coming out the acid stream, then you have 11.5 coming out the alkaline stream. There's total 14. Well, anything at any pathogen that's been tested at 2.6 pH or below will be neutralized within 2 minutes. And the alkaline water, freshly ionized alkaline water, when I say freshly, I mean to retain its properties. That's why you want to have a water ionizer, because you buy the stuff in the store that says it's been ionized and it's lacking its properties like pH and antioxidant quality. Now, when you have freshly ionized alkaline water at about 11 pH or above, it's great for emulsifying oil. So it's great for degreasing, and then you can follow that by acidic ionized water. That's great for disinfecting. And if you soak your food in freshly ionized.
Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry. I've got to cut you off. We're almost out of time, and I want to give this last caller a little bit of time. So we're going to switch over to Laura in Colorado. Laura, I'm sorry we shortchanged you on time. What's on your mind?
Well, no, that's okay. I just wanted to compliment Claire and say thank you so much for bringing up the issue about the preppers, and that, even though this current situation we're dealing with is awful in many ways, all of us that had been slandered and bashed and, we've been vindicated in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I'll mention that.
Well,
thank you so much for bringing that up.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. We're going to have to let you go. The music is playing. It's time for us to wrap up this show on Powhana Friday. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spray Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We are in dire straits, and seriously, we're not getting rich doing this. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.